Welcome to Alimentary, the podcast series where you will learn about your amazing body, how it works, and of course why food is so important. We have our store cupboard staples at the end of each episode. We'll also learn more about lifestyle tips and therapies to help you to influence your health in a positive way. Welcome back to Alimentary. In this episode, we are diving into red light therapy, and this is something that I initially became curious about from an autoimmune perspective, but which turns out may have far wider applications for health and healing. Now, I recorded this conversation some time ago, and as you'll hear, there are some powerful claims made about the benefits of red light therapy. So what exactly is it? Well, red light therapy is a non-invasive approach to healing, which delivers specific wavelengths of red and near infrared light directly into our body's cells, helping to boost ATP or energy production, support cellular repair, reduce inflammation, and promote tissue regeneration. Research suggests that it may play a role in balancing oxidative stress, supporting collagen production, aiding recovery, and improving overall cellular function. So from skin health to joint and muscle support. My guest today is Dr. Carl Rothschild, founder of Trifecta Light Technologies and a long-standing pioneer in LED, infrared and red light therapies. With decades of research and clinical experience, Dr. Carl is widely regarded as a leading voice in this field and is the author of Illuminated Healing, a comprehensive book on the science and application of red light therapy. So, if you are curious about red light therapy for chronic inflammation, sports recovery, skin health, or overall well-being, please join me in welcoming our guest, Dr. Carl Rothschild. You're very welcome, Dr. Carl, to Alimentary, and thanks so much for your time. All the way from sunny California.
Yeah, all the way over here. I always love the opportunity to share what I know, what I have.
I was wondering, could we possibly start with some background about your own professional journey? And I suppose, what led you to be such a great advocate for red light therapy?
So, it started in 1972, which is a long time ago. I was a junior at Stony Brook University, which is a very good school out here in New York. I'm not in New York anymore. I took the trip over the ways to get to California to, at the time, was the best chiropractic school. But what stimulated the thought of becoming a chiropractor was my passion. I was a biologist. I was really into science and that kind of stuff, really major. Maybe you could call it obsessed a little bit, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was doing some microbiology and it was boring as heck. I was doing other things in the world. And then someone brought up to my attention chiropractic, which in New York at the time was complete, it wasn't well looked upon, let's put it that way. And so I explored it enough and I called chiropractors all over the country and I never found anyone that wasn't thrilled to have been a chiropractor. And that's what I wanted. I was my version of a hippie. And that means to me, that money was not going to be my main focus and helping people was. And as corny as that sounds, there are people that are what we call nursey people. That's what they call it. Nursey people are people that really care about the individual and not business oriented. And then there's the rest of the world. I am the nursey kind. I like helping.
Well, that's lovely. And I mean, they say that if you're doing something that you're passionate about, you don't work a day in your life.
Exactly. And passion and belief. And that's what I teach people about in general. So there I am in 1972. I decided, you know what, I'm going to follow that interest. I can't call it a passion yet because I hadn't explored it enough. There were so few chiropractors in New York back then. I really didn't get a good sense of it. But I wanted to explore it enough. I came out to California. I became a chiropractor in 1978. And it was great. I really had a lot of fun doing that. I was helping a lot of people. And then about 27 years ago, so I was 20 years into my career, being a wise guy from New York, thinking I know everything. No one's going to teach me anything new. But this orthopedic surgeon hands me, and I knew him from years before, he hands me what looks like a flashlight. And he says, help me save the world. Because his fellow orthopedists were not interested. And that's because this light therapy could actually avoid the necessity for surgery and things like that.
So this is so you're sort of coming into where you started to evolve what you do into including the light therapy as well.
Yeah, so we started using light therapy. I thought he was crazy. He's handing me a flashlight saying, yeah, use this on your patients and you're going to get great results. I really, truly thought he was nuts. But I gave it a chance. And within a relatively short period of time, we were having really nice results. And imagine that was with equipment that is a fraction of the power of what we have now. But yet and still, we were having people with pretty decent results. So I went out there and started using it on all my patients. And then that was an initial device, which we called the class one back then. And then we developed class two, class three, and eventually the maximum power of class four devices, which, yes, they had better results. But what we didn't realize is that we were only treating parts of the body. And that'll become important in a minute. But I wanted to tell you that about 14, 15 years ago, give or take, it was discovered that there was an element of light that I was not involved with that helped with weight loss. Now, in the United States, weight loss is huge. People are willing to inject crap into their body. They're willing to take pills. They're willing to cut parts of their body off if they had to lose weight. Well, that's not what chiropractic is about. In fact, chiropractic is not about putting anything in the body that does not belong there. And if it can be helped, we don't want to yank anything out that does belong there. Fat
That
loss that people talk about is freezing the fat, boiling the fat, lasering the fat, radio frequency, ultrasonic cavitation. All of those are about destroying fat cells. And with red light therapy, it has been shown that it's absolutely, there are no side effects. You're not damaging any tissue. And there's a mechanism that I'm going to go over how that fat is released out of the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. But you were going to ask me something. What was that?
Yeah, so I was just going to say maybe we could go back a little bit there just to explain, as a chiropractor, what kind of issues were you treating your patients or your clients for?
So you see the door over there?
Yeah.
They walk in the door. That's my passion. I don't care what they have. I'm going to address whatever they have. Obviously, chiropractic is mostly thought of as musculoskeletal, but my expertise was in the entire health industry.
Mm.
That means I don't care what they have. We're gonna do our best, or at minimum, get them to the right people that would be able to help us even further. So it doesn't matter if it's an internal organ or whatever. I'm going to assist them as much as I possibly can. And I had people, especially when I started doing light therapy, were coming in with issues that I never. I mean, this lady came in; she had gum disease. Her teeth were rotten, and we helped her gum disease. And this guy came in with kidney problems, liver problems. It didn't matter.
Mm.
I would try to assist them, but my wheel really was musculoskeletal issues,
Mm.
bones, muscles, tendon, ligament, joints, things like that.
And you do that by making adjustments to the body.
I I would help them with whatever's necessary. So chiropractors, my type of chiropractor, are what they call diversified. That means we're not stubbornly going to say, well, it's only this. I'm only going to adjust your thumb and that, or this part of your spine. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is a whole body approach, and I'm going to use every tool at my disposal, including diet, and nutrition, including exercise, whatever. I used to teach my patients. I'm not in practice now. I'm 73 years old, and I loved what I was doing, but I'm so busy with this light therapy, I don't have time for that. And
Mm.
so I sold my practice. I had 12 practices, not all at the same time, but I sold my practices, and I'm now dedicated to helping people with red light therapy as much as I
Okay.
possibly can.
So, coming on to the red light therapy, could we maybe start with you telling us what it actually is? And I think one of the things that it specifically does is activate the mitochondrial function. And of course, the mitochondria is like the battery in all of our cells. So, would you mind maybe just I suppose, explaining exactly what red light therapy is?
Yes, but I'm going to hold off in a half a second, okay? Because
Okay.
I need, there's some basic information I have to get. First of all, the word red light therapy. What is that?
Mm.
So red light therapy is not just red light. Red light really helps mostly with fat loss and a little bit of healing. But when I use the term red light therapy, it's an integration of red and another form of therapy called infrared. But now I have to talk about infrared. Now, infrared, there's no such word as just infrared. It's either far infrared, which is about heat, or near infrared, which is what we call cold. It's not literally cold, it's not like an ice, but it doesn't get hot. And that's important because heat is the absolute enemy of this therapy I'm going to be talking to you about. If we generate heat, if I put a heat pack on someone's back and take it off a little bit later, it's bright red underneath there because we've attracted all this blood to the surface. That's going to block the penetration of the light. So heat is the enemy. And the ultimate goal has always been to have the highest medical grade lights that are very strong without getting hot. And so that's what near infrared. So we've integrated red for fat loss and some healing, and the near infrared that doesn't do anything for fat loss, but is amazing with the healing aspect. And so from that perspective, I want to give you a perspective and think about this. We had a gentleman that was having heart problems. Now that started 20 years ago, but around 13 years ago, it got so bad that he was having heart attacks once, if not twice a month. And so they implanted a defibrillator in his chest. And so every time he died, it would zap him back to life. And by the time we met him, he had died hundreds of times. So when we saw him, he was having heart attacks once, if not twice a week. And they were just watching him fade away. And every organ, every gland, every tissue in his body was not doing well. And so the practitioner calls me up and says, should I even treat him? I don't want him having a heart attack in my office. And I said, you know what? Why don't we just stay in the room the whole time and only treat him for 5 minutes? Now, a dose is normally 12 minutes. So the guy stays in the room the whole time. That's just that 5-minute dose. That patient goes home. That was 2 years ago. He's had more treatment since. He's never had a heart attack since. And everything has come back to life, everything. And I can give you tons of stories like this. In fact, I'm going to send you all of these videos and all kinds of show notes and things like that. That would be helpful if you'd like to distribute to your audience.
But can we go back to how it actually works? So
I'm going to tease the heck out of this.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
3 more things and then I'll give you that.
Okay.
3 more things. So you're going to go to the contact us page and you're going to isolate. We're going to try to find an office closest to you. And if you just use it 6 times, I'm not in practice, so you're not coming to me. I'm not doing this for any financial reason. Remember, I started off at the beginning telling you my goal is to help as many people as possible.
Yes.
You get in this bed 6 times, 3 times a week for 2 weeks. At the end of those 6 visits, I want you to then go back to the website and go to the contact us page and now put in on the bottom of that, you can actually send a message to me of what would happen to you after 6 visits. I don't care what you have. After 6 visits, you should see a change, and a change that you haven't experienced in some cases in many, many years. In fact, we have people that experience the word joy that haven't experienced that in many, many years because it even can help the brain. Then the other thing I'd like you to do is to go to the YouTube channel. That's right there. I'll send the show notes to that, and you'll see over 130 beautiful videos that have been really well done that my team has put together, and they're wonderful. And the last thing, before I give you what you want, is my book. Now, I don't make a penny off of this. The book is called Illuminated Healing. If you really want to be an expert at red light, if you certainly want to know more about red light therapy, you go to Amazon and put in the word Illuminated Healing. I wrote this book a couple of years ago, and it's really a good study on the whole thing about red light. So now let's talk about how this thing works. There's 2 completely separate mechanisms. One's about fat loss that was only discovered maybe 12 years ago, give or take. And that's a completely separate mechanism. And that's only about red light. I'm going to come back to that in half a second. But the other mechanism is everything else, the healing. In fact, if you take your finger from the top of your head, work it all the way down to your bottom of your feet and everything in between, including hair restoration, everything in the brain, everything in the eye, the mouth, and blah, 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 all the way down. We've seen phenomenal results with just about everything. So now let's talk about fat loss and how that works, because this is simpler. 12, 13, whatever number of years ago, they discovered that it was an element only of red light, not any other color, not infrared. In fact, infrared won't do anything for fat loss. What they found is that an element of red light will actually change the cell walls of the fat cells temporarily, just for a few hours, to make them more porous and allow the contents to leak out into the surrounding tissue. It works. It actually works. And with our unique protocol, we move the fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination.
So
And
the red light allows the cells to release the contents. And obviously fat cells can accumulate toxins and just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So you're essentially releasing the contents, which are more than likely a toxin. So does your protocol then include a procedure for helping the body to flush out those toxins?
that's a great question. And I'm going to tell you that I thought the impact on the body would be much more severe because you're right. The fat cells, and that's the crime out there that people think that they should just kill fat cells. Let's destroy them because they have a lousy name. But fat cells are essential tissue
Mm.
involved with hormone production, stem cell production, and of course, like you say, it not only stores fat, but it stores toxins. So we've gotten people, for example, I had a guy that had Lyme disease for 40 something years. He contracted when he was 12. We don't meet him until he's in his 50s. And it ruined his life. There were times when he wasn't sure he could get out of bed, so he couldn't have a career. He would have on and off jobs, and he was struggling. And the bed, I'm not going to, I'll send you the video, but it's one of those things that I would get goosebumps just talking to him about the kind of changes that it made in his life. But we assume, because, Lyme is such a toxin, creates the toxins in the body that he was going to suffer.
Mm.
And he never did. What we assumed is that as the toxins are released over the first week or so, that the person would have headaches and lethargy and a bunch of other stuff from
Yeah,
the toxin, but after 2 weeks, that it would be cleaned out. But we don't see that as much as we anticipated. And I can't explain exactly why it's not worse than it is, but it is not unusual that the person might experience a lower energy for a couple of days within the first visit. And then within 2 weeks, that we hear phenomenal results. By the third week, the energy is sky high.
but
But
would
that
you?
didn't happen to them. As far as the
Yeah,
protocol, a cleansing protocol is not difficult. We're going to drink more water. We're going to stay away from the irritants that people are taking, that create the inflammatory issues anyhow.
exactly.
Why do people have so much crap stored in their fat cells? It's because of the crap that they're consuming. So we try to get people to help us out. If you just get in the bed for fat loss and go home and get drunk and overeat every night, that's not
No.
going to work. But we don't want you to go on a starvation program either. I don't like the word diet, and I'll tell you why. The word diet implies that there's a beginning and an end. And when
Yes.
the diet ends, they put 90 some, it's over 95% of people put all their weight back on with any diet. If there's an end to the diet, they don't recognize that they have to incorporate smart eating for the rest of their life.
Mm.
Now, the reason why I feel comfortable about telling people I'm 73 is that I got, why people don't take care of themselves sometimes? Because they're not scared enough. They don't know what they're doing today and what impact it's going to have on their future life. But if they would listen carefully to their 75-year-old self crying in the background saying, "What are you doing? You think you're getting away with this and you're not." But I got to see that. You imagine I've seen tens of thousands of patients. And sometimes they would come into the office and I would go, "Please, God, don't let me wind up like that." I wouldn't say it out loud, obviously,
Yeah.
but I couldn't help but think to myself. And so that got me scared out of my mind. And so, what I eat, I don't put anything in my body. I don't take injections or drugs or nothing that could do any harm to me. I don't take anything. I take some supplements. That's about it. My life is smart eating, smart exercise, and I do incorporate red light therapy. And we're going to go over now the glorious wavelength. We talked about red light, changing making the fat cell wall more porous, and that's as simple as it is, and allowing the fat to leak out. With our unique protocol, we move the fat away from the fat cells and eventually to the liver for use or elimination. So not only do we suggest a smarter cleansing diet for a little while, but we also give liver support at the same time. So now I want to talk to you what I started with in the first place was about healing, about helping people in an amazing, glorious way. And I'm telling you that knowing what I told you, that I love helping people, I've never seen more people respond with a phrase that's something similar to this. Thank you for giving me my life back.
Mm.
That's what I started in 1972 looking for something. And I did it as a chiropractor sometimes, but now it's all the time, or I should say more frequent, where we hear people where their their life has changed dramatically. Well, we'll take an athlete that we can extend their career significantly because they're about to retire from all the injuries and all that. They get in the bed before their activity and then again after their activity, and their recovery and their performance is out. I mean, I had one guy call me up and said, I can now swim. He was not a professional swimmer, but he was a serious swimmer, and he now can swim twice the distance he used to swim. So now I think you want to ask me a question, but I'm about to go into the mechanism of how the healing aspect works. But did you have a question?
I was just wondering if in your treatments, do you specifically select one of the three types, the red, near infrared or far infrared, or do you use a combination of them, or does that depend on what the issue is?
We don't go near far infrared. Remember, far
Okay,
infrared is heat, and
is
heat
heat,
will
yeah.
dilate blood vessels and get in the way.
Okay,
And,
okay.
and no, we don't. We can. You can select just red or just near infrared, but
Mm.
there's no reason for that. The red is glorious with its healing aspect as well, not as much as near infrared. So you want to integrate. The reason why my company 12, 13 years ago were the first ones to integrate red and near infrared together. Red for some of the healing qualities, but also the fat loss, and the near infrared for all the healing and nothing to do with fat loss. And then your question might be, well, what if I don't want to lose any fat? In fact, I'm exactly where I want to be. Well, the red only targets excessive amounts of fat.
Okay.
So you're not going to get in the bed and all of a sudden be skin and bones. That's not
Yes.
going to happen.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's talk about how this works. And you hinted at it, that it is about mitochondria and it's about what we call mitochondrial health. So what is the mitochondria? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body. It's the reason why you breathe oxygen and eat food to create this very important molecule called ATP, which is the energy currency of the body. If you have the right amount of ATP, you're going to function beautifully. And your aging process will be more. But I talk about people. I can't stop you from getting older, but wouldn't it be nice if you did it more gracefully?
Yeah.
I liken the well-being of a person like a candle that burns bright right from the beginning, all the way to the end, and then sputters out and dies. That's the way we should all go. But especially in the United States, I don't know what it's like in Ireland. The last 10 or 20 years of some people's lives ain't so great. They're
I know.
invalids.
And I mean that's the dream, isn't it? That we just extend the quality of our life. We know, we won't live forever, but if we can have good quality up as
Yeah.
long as we can, and it is the same in Ireland, where you see people, as you say, the last maybe 10 years anyway, where the quality of life just isn't there and they need more care.
But if you don't want to wither away and die, and you want to live brightly for as long as you can, you would want to do those three things I described: smart eating, smart exercise, and get red light therapy. But let me tell you what red light therapy is from the healing aspect. It's sunlight. What
That's
we've
what I was going
done
to
is
ask you,
we've
yeah.
taken four elements of sunlight, none of the UV light or any other color that can create all kinds of problems, only red and near infrared, nothing to do with far infrared. I'm not against far infrared, but with the process that I'm doing, we don't want far infrared. Now, after you get the treatment, you can do many other things. You can do far infrared, you can do whatever, but just during the treatment, you don't want anything blocking the penetration of the lights. Far infrared would block that. Exercise would block that. So you wouldn't want to come from a racquetball game or whatever you play, or soccer, or your version of football, and exhausted and sweaty and all that, and get in bed. You won't get the best. We won't get great results that way. We want a body at rest that's not sweaty and all that sort of stuff, and ready to absorb as much of this light as possible. So what they found, okay, so let's get back to the mitochondria. Again, the mitochondria is the powerhouse, creates the ATP, creates that energy currency of the body that is, but I want to tell you something. Only recently did they discover how extensive mitochondria is. So when I went to school, I was taught that every cell had mitochondria, and it ain't true. The heart, which has the highest demand for energy, has over 5,000 mitochondria. And what they now know is that the mitochondria make up 10% of your body weight. Now, I need that to sink in. You have to understand what else is in your body that you would think would take up a lot of percentage of, bone
Mm,
and hair and skin and blood and all that. But it's the mitochondria that has 10% of your body weight. Well, a cell is very small, right?
yeah,
And the mitochondria is what's called an organelle within it. So it's not
exactly.
visible even on the average microscope. So you have the mitochondria, but mitochondria, interesting enough, is not sensitive to light. So it's not the mitochondria that is the final issue. It's an enzyme in the wall of the mitochondria that is what's called a chromophore, which is stimulated by sunlight to act. There are other chromophores in your body that create tanning, that create vitamin D, things like that. But this one's called cytochrome C oxidase. Cytochrome C oxidase is a chromophore stimulated by certain elements of sunlight that obviously we have in our bed, magnifying it many times and driving it deep into the person's body. But I want to get back to what I told you when I first learned about 14 years ago that about weight loss. That's when I started manufacturing. And we manufactured the lasers and pads and whatever. And then I was forced into building a bed because of COVID. So with a bed, you can get in and out of the bed yourself. You don't need staff. It's easy to do. You press the start button, you get in, you get out, you get dressed and out of the room. And so we were forced into doing that. But what we subsequently learned is that when you bathe the whole body, head to toe, left and right, front and back, inside and out, try the bed 6 times, and you will see a difference. So let's get back to cytochrome C oxidase. The 4 elements of light that we have in our bed will stimulate the heck out of that, bring the mitochondria back to normal. And so it doesn't matter what you have. There's a good chance. We believe, as a chiropractor, we believe in a thing called innate intelligence, that your body knows what it needs to do. But from various different things that we do to our body, plus injuries and things like that, there is this thing called interference. So from a chiropractic point of view, it would be maybe your spine is not aligned properly. Maybe it's from injuries, from whatever, that various things are going on in your body, but certainly what we consume. Remember, alcohol is a killer, smoking is a killer. And so from a perspective, I try to get people not to, to tell somebody, okay, stop, you can't do that anymore. It'll turn them off. So I just say, let's do
Yeah,
less of negative things.
and the other thing that strikes me is that because we're so afraid of the sun now, so another thing that is, I suppose, a more modern day phenomenon is that we don't spend as much time outside. Are we, we're missing out on that red light from the sun, in addition to, protecting ourselves from the UV light. So, I mean, do you think, I mean, so this is your way of replicating what the sun can do for us? Would that be true to say?
It's sort of and yet, yes and no. So it's true from the perspective of the elements that we use, but we're talking about magnifying that
Okay.
thousands of times.
Hmm.
And so if we didn't magnify that, we just said, Arnett, who's having the regular heart attacks, Arnett, why don't you go sit out in the sun for 15 minutes a day, whatever, it wouldn't make a difference.
No, no. Yeah.
It
Obviously,
wouldn't be,
what you're doing is more therapeutic.
but it emanates originally from the sun. But we've taken that, we've harnessed that, and we drive that deep into the person's body. So I don't want to confuse people in that I'm telling them, now let's talk about the sun. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that we've been put on this planet with a sun
Yeah.
and God or evolution or whatever said, stay away from the sun. That's nuts.
Yeah.
But you can't, water is really good, but you can drown in it. So some people think if a little bit's good and then a lot must be great. Not necessarily. So be smart, be well guided. I would suggest you have a really great health practitioner that you become a teammate with, and they help you sustain and maintain your life as long as possible.
Mm.
So I like natural healers. Try to find somebody that understands red light therapy. We do deliver all over the world. They should have a bed. And you would be using this bed 3 times a week. I'm 73. I'm going to use it and continue to use it without any ailments. I don't have any issues right now. And I haven't had. I mean, obviously, I may have fallen and I've got heals from that, but I don't have any internal organ issues or things like that. But I still get into bed 3 times a week because it's not a matter of where I am now. It's where I am going to be for the rest of my life. And I'd
Yeah,
like that to be the quality of life of health as much as I possibly can. I want to have fun as long as I possibly can. Maybe
mm,
that's the term I should use more than anything.
mm.
Have fun, have liberty, have freedom. We believe in this country and probably in yours as well that freedom is a very important thing. But you have nothing if you don't have your health. You have nothing if you don't have your health. And so
Um,
try to be as healthy and stay as healthy as you possibly can.
you mentioned COVID-19 earlier, Dr. Carl. Did the pandemic influence the adoption or the accessibility of the red light therapy? I mean, I know you mentioned that you developed the bed at that time. Would you say in the industry in general, did the pandemic change people's, I suppose, did it become more popular after COVID or are people more aware of it?
Yes and no. I mean, our competition in the world is money. And, as I said, there's a lot more money to be made in not using red light therapy than there is in using red light therapy. So I think we're just scratching a tiny bit of the surface, even though you might see more on the internet than ever before. And it is growing because especially when China sees something that's successful, they're going to create cheap knockoffs. And so there's all kinds of junk on Amazon and all over the internet. But here's what you want to be looking for. You want to look for equipment. And again, we're probably not in Ireland right now. So I don't know if most of the audience is there, but we are in the United States, a little bit of Canada, a little bit of Mexico, and we're going to be in the Middle East. But you want to look for the following: high grade, medical grade lights that don't get hot. Number two, you want the top canopy to come right down onto your body. So to that end, you want to have a full body approach. Now, I know there are masks out there and helmets out there and all, and they're fine. And you want to have what I call the fountain of youth. You really want to have full body coverage.
Exactly.
So using a full body bed
Mm.
is a better approach. Yes, it's more expensive, but do you know why people do not realize? Now, again, I don't know what it's like in Ireland, but in the United States, it's very expensive to be sick. Not only that, it's not just the money of the doctors, the drugs, the surgeries, and hospital stay and all that. It's screwing up your life. It's getting in the way of your life. What is that worth? What is it worth that you're no longer mobile? All those things. So people think something's expensive until they get sick and they go, whoa, I thought that was expensive. But one injection in the United States for a particular drug for ulcerative colitis, one injection, it's not really injection, it's an IV drip for an hour. How much do you think that 1 hour drip, now I'm going to do this in the United States dollars, but how much in dollars do you think they bill the insurance for a 1 hour drip of this drug for ulcerative colitis? You got to take a guess.
$2,000.
That's so far from being accurate. $55,000. So that's
Oh
what we're
my
competing against.
gosh. Oh
That's
my
what
gosh.
natural healing is competing against.
Yeah.
I'm not against drugs, not against surgery. I'm against the way it's used, first of all, instead of looking at some alternatives. Whatever. I can go on forever with this kind of talk because I've been doing it for 48 years
Yeah. I'm
and
sure.
talking to people, but I want you to know that, again, you want to look for medical grade lights. You want lights that come right down onto your body. When you look at some of the equipment like paddles, pans, things like that, they're off the body. You lose power exponentially as you come away from the body. That was my objection to making a bed because the beds, there were only a couple of beds at the time when we were making ours, and the beds had very high arcing dome canopy. So the lights were a foot or two away from the body. And I know that couldn't work well. So we perfected the ability to bring the lights right onto the body. The other thing is you want to customize the treatment. So someone who's 80 pounds is not getting the same dose. Someone who's 400 pounds, a 400 pounder with all that flesh can absorb a lot of this light without getting any heat. Whereas the 80 pounder has no flesh. We have to tone down the power so that they're not getting any heat generating it. And then the other thing is that you have the ability to pulse the wave. And some of your audience might know about frequency healing or resonating frequencies, things like that. But tissues in your body resonate with different frequencies.
Yes.
And so we're able to pulse the wave in the body and the bed to resonate with different tissues in your body. It's very easy when you change that frequency.
Would they be similar to solfeggio frequencies?
Exactly. And Rife, R-I-F-E frequency. Yes.
Okay.
You can generate any of those. Now, there is a slight difference that light can't pulse at the highest frequencies without the body assuming it's just constant. So the lights can't go up to the hundreds of thousands of impulses. That's hundreds of thousands of impulses per second. So light pretty much is limited to 1,000 beats per second. So we're in the range of 100 to 1,000. To 1,000 beats per second. But we also include a sound generator and a vibratory generator so that the person's not at the same time, but they're getting all of these different resonating frequencies for their body. So again, you can pulse the wave, you can customize the treatment, you want a light to come very close to the body, and you want the capability of having these high-grade medical lights that don't get hot, even though they're very strong.
So are there any risks or side effects associated with red light therapy? You mentioned that you already tailor the dose and everything to, to the patient's needs and body composition. I suppose, are there any other measures that you have to take to ensure their safety?
See, just the fact that you're asking that question shows me that I screwed up here.
Oh,
That I didn't tell you about the side effects. That should have been something I would have told you early on. So
no problem.
let me tell
No.
you
So
about the side effects.
that's my job. That's what I'm here for. So
No, I love it.
yeah.
Thank you so much. You can ask me other questions, but let's talk about side effects. In the 50 years that they studied this technology, there's never been a recorded side effect.
Oh,
You couldn't hurt somebody with this if you tried. So you can get in the bed, and then the next phrase is, well, what about contraindications? And the word contraindication indicates who can or cannot use the bed. And technically, there are no contraindications. You can get in the bed with electronics like pacemaker or defibrillator. You can get in the bed with metal, with staples that you just had surgery from. Whatever. There are no contraindications except two legal contraindications. I don't know in Ireland if you have the same problem there that we have here, but in our country, we have too many attorneys, way too many attorneys. And they're desperate to find a reason to sue you. So we want to give them less reason to sue. For that reason, our legal team has said, let's stay away from pregnant women and active cancer. Now, if it's in remission or it's cured or whatever, no problem. But active cancer, we're going to hold off on that. So I don't even talk about it. If somebody asked me a question about cancer, I said, thank you. We're not going to discuss that. Do I wish I could? Obviously. So that's the contraindications and side effects. Thank you for reminding me that I screwed up and didn't bring
no,
that up
you didn't at all.
early
You
on.
didn't at all. No,
So is there
I'm
any,
sure you would have got there eventually.
but Jessica is another one of these, it's a crazy interview that I did with her because I heard she said she had Lyme disease and how the red light helped her so much. I was just calling her up about the Lyme disease and she started rattling off 16 very serious conditions that she had above and beyond Lyme disease. So she had 20 years of constant diarrhea, only diarrhea. She had uveitis. Now, uveitis is a swelling in one eye. And it's eventually going to lead to blindness in that eye if it's not handled. So the way that they treat that is an injection right in her eye once a month. How much is that injection? $5,000.
Wow.
And when I asked her, when you watch the video, you see what she says. I asked her, what was that like getting injected in the eye? I'm going to let you watch that video. Now, to understand that in a relatively short period of time, that stopped. And her three forms of psoriasis, including gluteate psoriasis, plaque psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, gone. And her one version of the other thing, one thing after another, she was talking about all these things. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody with severe psoriasis, but she had rash across her forehead all the time. She had always had bleeding around her ears, red and bleeding around both ears, down both arms, down both legs. And it's not only embarrassing, I mean, how can you have a job like that? And within 2 weeks, that was gone.
I can tell the passion that you have for the life-changing case studies.
I'm extremely passionate about this because this is what my life's about,
Yeah.
helping as many people as possible. Chiropractors don't believe in putting anything in the body or yanking anything out unless there's no other option. And
Mm,
here are so many other options where we don't have to do any damage.
mm.
I don't take anything, no drugs, no injections, none of that stuff.
Uh,
I'm fairly well disciplined with my diet.
are there any, I believe, is there a blue and green light therapy as well? And how does red light therapy compare to those?
They're fine. But if I took out, I could put any lights in the bed, right? If I take out a strip of glorious wavelength and put in green or blue, then but I'm going to weaken and dilute the success that we've been having.
Mm. So do
Now,
they have
some people
any
say,
ther do they have
I'm
any
sorry,
ther oh no, I was just gonna say, do they have any therapeutic value at all?
not more than what we already have. It
Yeah.
wouldn't add to the situation,
No.
but they like to tout the idea that blue has to do it as a germicide, that it would help with acne and stuff like that. But our red and near infrared is going to take care of any skin condition. We had a lady that had third-degree burns. Horrible, horrible. I have the pictures and stuff. And she was guaranteed by the wound center to have permanent scarring and to have pain and drugs for 6 months. And by the middle to end of second week, the pain was all gone. And by the end of the third week, it was all gone. No scarring, no nothing. So blue light, green light, they're not going to do that. And again, I could put all these other colors in there, but I'm just going to dilute the results that we have. And if you have
So
severe any skin condition, including acne, and we already talked about psoriasis, eczema, skin tags, stretch marks, sagging skin, all that stuff, the results are spectacular. Again, the reason why we called it the trifecta was face, fat, and healing. And so the skin on the face is going to, fine lines and wrinkles and stuff, the face is going to look younger, but the person is actually going to feel younger at the same time. So it's not like we're getting just face, we're doing the internal part of this as well.
sorry, I just missed that, Dr. Carl. What did you say the three F's were? Face,
Fat and healing.
oh, and healing. Okay. So that's your
But there's,
trifecta. I
but there's
understand.
5
Yeah.
other divisions of the company, including men's health, women's health. We talked about athletes. The reason why our bed has been with the Olympic Training Center. We're with some NBA teams, meaning basketball. We're with many major facilities throughout the country that are involved with athletes because the athlete, again, as I said, they get into bed before and after an activity. And before is to perform better, and after is to recover much quicker. When I see professional athletes on the sideline because they're injured, I can't believe it that they haven't gotten out of bed because their recovery will be incredible. And we're now negotiating with a major, like one of the top of the line basketball players, and hopefully this comes through because he loves our bed, and I'm hoping to sign him up as an endorser for
Mm.
endorsements, and that'll just take us to another level.
So if someone has an issue that they come to you with and they get their 6 sessions 3 times over 2 weeks, what levels of maintenance do you need to do after that?
Well, first of all, I don't mean to imply that they won't need more than 6 visits. So
Okay.
I'm just saying, here's the conversation. On the 6th visit, I would sit down. Now, I'm not in practice, but I've I've taught people how to do this, how to manage and market your practice and all that. And what you do is you sit down and say, look, this is where you were when we started, and here's where you are now. Now you can see that we've made progress like you have not seen in many years, but we got more to do. But I don't want to imply that anything that it's all done in 6 visits.
Hmm.
You might need more. You might not, but you might need more. But when
But
I talk to a patient, they always ask the same question: is it permanent? Do I ever have to come back again? And it's like the dentist did a really good job explaining to people that you don't just clean your teeth once a year
hmm.
or once in your lifetime. You're doing it so you don't lose your teeth. So if you don't want to lose your health, you need to maintain your well-being. And so a maintenance program is based on their condition and their age. It could be as infrequent as once a month. And it could be like me, my maintenance is three times, well, 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm getting in there feeling great.
I suppose depending on the person, their age and their issues is basically then how many times they would need to go to the bed. But it's not like, they'll if they miss, say, a month, after they've done their course, and they've healed the symptoms that they were addressing, it's not like they're going to fall off a cliff back to where they
Correct.
were. Yeah, yeah.
But if you have something very severe, I would suggest, we want to get a couple months of treatment in there so to get a little bit stronger foundation. But the maintenance is the most important thing, and it's not. Most people, especially men, are motivated by pain, and so it's very hard to teach people. And the dentist did a good job with this. You're taking care of your teeth before you have the pain, because everyone recognizes that if you wait until you're in pain with your teeth, you might lose them. And it's the same thing with the rest of your body. But that's hard for people. Most people are pain oriented because, again, that's where the money is. So all the advertising is not about, let's make sure you don't have this problem.
Dr. Carl, you have been so informative, and it's really obvious your passion for helping people, and I'm definitely intrigued about red light and near infrared therapy, so thank you so much for sharing your story and your case studies with us on this episode. It's been lovely talking
My,
to you.
my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My thanks again to Dr. Carl for his expertise and for sharing his passion about red light therapy with us. So, the store cupboard staple for this episode is a golden spice, which is sticking with our theme of being anti inflammatory, and that is turmeric. Now, turmeric comes from the root of Curcuma longa, a plant which is native to South and Southeast Asia, namely Indonesia and southern India, where it has been cultivated for at least 4,000 years. It was a venerated constituent of Ayurvedic medicine. And of course, it's also used in a traditional curry spice blend. Ancient texts describe turmeric as a sacred plant, used not only for healing, but also in religious rituals, dyes, and for food preservation. Arab traders introduced turmeric to Europe in the 13th century, but has probably become more popular relatively recently, thanks to scientific studies which have shown its therapeutic properties. Nowadays, turmeric is grown in not only in India and Indonesia, in China, the Philippines, Taiwan, Haiti, and Jamaica. The spice that we would use in our kitchens is made by boiling, drying, and grinding the turmeric root into that distinctive deep yellow powder. So, what is it that makes turmeric nutritionally special? Well, the answer is a compound that you have probably heard of, and that's curcumin. It is the main active ingredient, and while it only makes up about 2 to 5% of the actual turmeric root, it really has been the focus of an awful lot of research in more modern times for its anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. As we know, chronic inflammation is linked to a long list of health issues. So everything from arthritis to heart disease. So of course, we're always looking to add in more anti-inflammatory foods into our diet. Research is ongoing, to see just how much curcumin can help to support our body's natural ability to manage inflammation. And studies suggest that curcumin may support brain health as well, because it appears to influence levels of BDNF, which is a protein linked to learning and memory. There is also evidence that it may play a role in supporting heart health, aiding digestion, and even contributing to healthy immune response. Now, of course, it's not a miracle cure, but it is remarkably versatile, and it can play its part in an overall healthy lifestyle and diet for sure. But turmeric also contains other valuable nutrients such as manganese, which supports bone development and metabolism, iron, which is crucial for oxygen transport around our body, and vitamin B6, which is important for brain development. It also contains plant compounds called polyphenols, which are antioxidants and help to protect our cells from damage. Now, curcumin, the compound in turmeric, isn't absorbed very easily by the body. So that's why you'll often hear the tip to always use it with black pepper, because black pepper contains a piperine, which is a compound which boosts curcumin absorption by up to 20 times. So cooking turmeric with healthy fats like coconut oil and olive oil can also help. So a little black pepper can go a long way when you're using turmeric. So when you're buying turmeric, you can buy it either in root form or, of course, in powder form. So I would have both. I buy it in root form to make my ginger and turmeric shots. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And also, I would use the powder, if I'm making up a curry. I also add the powder to quinoa when I'm cooking it, and it makes the quinoa. Quinoa is a pretty sort of bland color. So when you add a half a teaspoon of turmeric and some black pepper, of course, to the water when you're boiling it, it makes it a lovely golden yellow curry or color. Looks a lot more appetizing, and of course you're boosting the antioxidant properties of your meal as well. Of course, turmeric in stews, but you can also add a little bit to soups or casseroles. Now it will change the color quite easily of whatever you're making, so just bear that in mind. So for example, you might add a little bit to an orange soup, like carrot and sweet potato or butternut squash, and you won't notice it that much. But if you're adding it to a green soup, it might just turn it a bit of a yucky sort of brownie color, So obviously you have to be careful what you add it to. Actually, when you're using the root as well, I usually wear gloves when I am peeling my root, because it can really stain your hands. But a tip that I got was to actually, if you put oil on your hands before you handle it, the color of the turmeric is less likely to stick to your hands. So most culinary uses of turmeric, they won't give you high levels of curcumin, but they do contribute to overall health when used regularly. So it's using turmeric regularly, the benefits will build in your system. Supplements, of course, are available, but just be aware that curcumin can interact with certain medications, especially blood thinners. So if you're on any medications, it's always advisable to check with your doctor if it's okay to supplement. So there you have it, the story of turmeric, an ancient root, a sacred symbol, and a modern nutritional powerhouse. Hopefully there is enough information there to encourage you to add some more whole foods into your shopping trolley this week. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I just wanted to clarify that the podcast is for informational purposes only and does not substitute professional care from a doctor or trained health professional, nor constitute medical advice or services if you're in a position to need either. However, if you found it interesting, you can subscribe to make sure you don't miss future episodes, or sign up for my newsletter on lynsharkeynutrition.ie.